My arm is gone. After a long time of waiting, I've finally made it to my summary of the third Tales from the Pizzaplex Epilogue. I've done a summary for each of the 3 full stories in the third book, Somnophobia, Pressure, and Claustrophobia, and now it's time to read and summarize the events of the third Epilogue. In the first epilogue, we had an endoskeleton go rogue and murder a bunch of construction workers at the burnt down FNaF 6 location, causing the idea of it becoming a Fazbear Entertainment monument to be abandoned. The second epilogue shows 8 teenagers sneaking into the FNaF 6 building and finding the dissected corpses of the construction workers trying to escape the building and finding there was no way out, and the endoskeleton was still down there and the teenagers heard the footsteps. And that's where we leave off in the epilogue. Epilogue 3 picks up straight from there, so I think it's time that we see what happens next. So without further ado, let's get started. Lucia, Joel, Adrian, Jace, Hope, Nick, and Kelly, and Wade were all hiding in this room amongst dusty boxes from whatever was walking down the hallway. The footsteps had been quick, like they didn't stay on the ground for long, but they also sounded heavy. They were only separated from this thing by a thin wall, and that thought disturbed Lucia. The footsteps began to slow down as they grew closer and closer to the door of the storeroom that they had been hiding in. Adrian pressed his back against the door, and Nick came over and pushed his hands against it. Wade stood with his back to some boxes, looking as if he was about to tackle something, which looked convincing as he was a quarterback. Lucia thought back to the carnival, which had only been a couple hours ago, despite it feeling like days had passed since they were there. Suddenly, the footsteps completely stopped right outside the door. The light in the storage room was dim, but it went out completely for a few seconds. When it came back, it began flickering. The footsteps returned, and with each step came sounds of creaking metal, hissing, and rasps. Adrian and Nick walked away from the door and stepped behind 2 stacks of boxes, motioning for the others to follow. They reached the back corner of the room, and Adrian said that they needed to get out of here. Joel said, "You think?" but he said it at full volume, and everyone shushed him. Lucia said that they should try harder to get through the barriers that they'd found, and Joel once again spoke loudly, saying that if he couldn't get through them, then it can't be moved. Adrian suggested that they split up and search for something to pry open the barriers, and everyone agreed. He suggested they split up into 4 teams, meaning clearly these guys have never seen a horror movie, especially since they all agreed to that. Wade partnered with Joel, Jace with Adrian, Hope with Nick, and Kelly with Lucia. Lucia wondered why Kelly wanted to partner with her, but she was glad as she wanted to get to know her better. Seems like they completely forgot that that's not what they're here for. Lucia also didn't want to be paired with Jace, as he was her date and didn't think he would be good in the time of crisis, so if he wasn't going with Adrian, he would probably want to go with her, which she didn't want. All the while, no one even mentioned the footsteps that they'd heard, and it seems like while making this plan, they didn't even account for it. The group used Jace's tablet to try to draw a map of the abandoned pizzeria they'd been stuck in, but despite being here all together for a while, they disagreed on what went where. Jace took the tablet back and drew a perfect map as he had an artist's mind. Adrian assigned everybody to where they would go, Adrian and Jace going to basically all the places where the body parts were, a fact Jace didn't like, but Adrian claimed to have his back. Lucia and Kelly were assigned to the restrooms, maintenance room, and the room where all the robotic parts were, and the office at the end of the front hall. Jace asked if they were going to just ignore the footsteps they just heard, and Adrian and Kelly said that if they think about what it was, it would probably just get them too scared and make things worse. When they went out into the hallway, they were relieved to find that whatever was here before had been gone. In groups of 2, they could be much more stealthy, so whatever was here would have a lesser chance of noticing them than if they were just stuck in their group of 8. Still, they're splitting up in a horrific situation, which means they're idiots. So they split up into their groups and head to where they were assigned to go. Kelly and Lucia decided to check the restrooms first, and when they had made it there, they found that the stalls weren't ones that you could see under, meaning that something could be hiding behind the stall doors that they couldn't see. They exchanged a look and took steps toward it. We cut over to Joel and Wade, who were checking the employees' lounge and the other storage room and the furnace room. Joel loudly called to Wade that he had found a pager in one of the metal lockers, and Wade told him to be quiet. Joel kept being loud, and Wade sarcastically said that they should try to make more noise just to get whatever was in the hallway to come face them. Wade was trying to loosen a vent cover with his Swiss Army multi-tool screwdriver, trying to take off the screws from the cover. He had gotten a screw out and just needed to get one more off. He thought maybe the ductwork could lead to an exterior vent so they could get out. Just then they heard a metal-on-metal sounding screech. Wade at first thought it was Joel, but he realized it had come from the wall nearby Wade. He decided the vent was probably a long shot and that they should check the other storage room, so they headed over there. We cut over to Hope and Nick looking behind the stage curtains in the dining room, seeing sound equipment and stage props but nothing else. Hope was unsettled by the fact that one of the ripped off arms was close to her, but she tried not to think about it. A thud came from behind them, but it had just been Adrian and Jace, who were checking out the arcade. Hope was upset that Adrian chose to team up with Jace instead of her. Yeah, Jace was his best friend, but Hope was his girlfriend. If they got out of here, she wanted to have a talk with him about priorities and feelings. Nick suggested that they check behind the wardrobes in the backstage area. It made sense that there would be a door out to some kind of loading dock or something, so it was worth a shot. They began heading toward the wardrobes, and when Hope got the feeling that something was nearby, she was pretty disturbed, honestly, understandably. As they stepped, the floor creaked and a cabinet door fell open, but Nick said that it was just that the boards were warped and their weight affected it, because, the floor was like unbalanced, so that caused the cabinet door to fall open. However, the feeling of something being nearby didn't go away, even when Hope looked around and finds nothing else in there with them. Nick looked through the wardrobe, finding a bunch of animal costumes and stuff, and he thinks that there might be a back door behind the wardrobe. Jace had been walking in tandem with Adrian the whole time, so in sync that the sound of their footsteps could have been taken as just one person. Jace had been pretty scared, but when he and Adrian heard a clink sound coming from the stage near them, he accidentally plowed right into Adrian. Adrian told him to be quiet, but Jace's breathing seemed abnormally loud. Suddenly, back with Hope and Nick was pulled into the wardrobe and disappeared behind the costumes inside. Hope called for him, taking 2 steps before Nick came back into view. His eyes were bulging and twitching, looking directly at Hope. She was relieved to see him once again, that he wasn't disappeared and that he hadn't disappeared forever, but she somehow missed it until he said, lifelessly, that his arm was gone. She tried to scream, but the sound didn't come out. Behind Nick, the costumes moved and outshot a blackened metal hand and grabbing Nick's neck and twisting it right off. Hope didn't believe such a thing was possible, but she stared in shock and horror as this new reality flashed before her eyes. She was frozen in place, staring directly into the black pupils in the robot's white eyes. The robot's cranium was spotted with dry blood, and its hands were covered in bright red, gushing blood. Nick's head flopping down towards the stage floor, and as the robot took a step towards Hope, she screamed and took off running. Cutting back to Lucia and Kelly, we find that they had managed to open up a vent only to find a big block of concrete preventing them from progressing out of the building through it. Lucia and Kelly were really bonding, even joking that Kelly should abandon Hope to be besties with her. However, it seemed like the main reason they bonded and joked with each other was just as a way to cope with the horrifying situation that they were in. The sound of Hope's screams echoed through the restaurant. Lucia and Kelly darted toward where the sound came from, but when they met Hope running down the hall, she told them to run as well. Joel and Wade showed up, and Adrian and Jace were on their way as well, and as soon as Hope saw Adrian, she threw herself into his arms. They pressed Hope, and she spoke unintelligible babbles that no one could understand. Finally, Hope was able to spit it out that Nick was dead. Everyone looked at each other in disbelief. Adrian reminded them that they were out in the open and a grinding noise sounded, seeming to be all throughout the building. They had to go into a room somewhere, Lucia suggesting the parts and service room as a bunch of stuff in there was metal, so there were plenty of things that they could use as a weapon. They made it in, and Lucia immediately regretted her suggestion. Yeah, there was a lot they could use as a weapon, but it was really creepy in there. The lights flickered and the animatronic suits, heads, and endoskeletons were all around them. The suits had been empty, Lucia had checked earlier. However, when Hope explained what happened to Nick and how it was an endoskeleton who had done it, she started to wonder. They had been out of the parts and service room for a long time. What if the endoskeleton had come into the room and entered one of the animatronic suits? Looking around the room at 2 different dog animatronics and a cat animatronic, the lights began to flicker more and more. They shut off for a few seconds, and when they turned back on, one of the dog animatronics charged at Hope and tore off her arms, legs, and head, splattering blood all over everyone in the room. Everyone stood still for a few seconds until Kelly yelled for them all to get out, and once they got out that door, they all tore off down the hallway, and the epilogue ends right there. Of the 8 teenagers that had gone into the abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place, 6 were still alive, and who knows if it's going to remain that way. Or, well, who knows besides the people who read the leaks for the 4th book already. Either way, I think this epilogue was awesome. It's probably on par with the first epilogue for me. I did notice some interesting things, though. The lights flicker when something is going to happen. It's interesting to know that in the FNaF 6 building and security breach, the stage lights are still on. I think we all assumed that this was just the electricity from the Pizzaplex being drained down here, but it's actually said in the first epilogue that those lights are still on even when there's no electricity in the place. It's like the agony or the spirit of Afton never left that building and it's still here. At the beginning of the epilogue, when the endoskeleton stopped moving in front of the door to the storage room that they were all hiding in, the lights shut off, but when they turned back on, the endoskeleton moved on. Right before the dog kills Hope, the lights shut off, and they turn back on right before the dog lunges at her. The endoskeleton and the lights are connected. It seems like Afton's spirit is in fact in this endoskeleton, and it is basically like the ink demon for the abandoned FNaF 6 building, which is like the Joey Drew Studios. Afton, as the endoskeleton, has basically taken over, and he's controlling the objects all around this place. Also, the fact that it's like connected to the lights, it kind of reminds me of Stranger Things. I don't know if that's just me. It seems as if the glitch trap virus is already spreading right now. However, with all that being said, while I believe Afton's spirit to be within this endoskeleton, I don't think that's the original endoskeleton from Afton's body for a few reasons. Not only does the endoskeleton have 2 arms and is implied to have 2 intact ears, not matching the design of Scraptrap, but William's corpse is literally melded together with the endoskeleton. His flesh and the endoskeleton of Springtrap have fused together. So how exactly does this endoskeleton not have a dead body on it? Also, the design of Burntrap's endoskeleton is that of a Glamrock endoskeleton, so it doesn't match. However, the one thing I don't have an answer for is why the endoskeleton is burnt if it wasn't Williams. But besides that, nothing else really matches Williams. I was told that this epilogue confirms it is Williams' endoskeleton, but I don't really see how it does in any way. Maybe I'm missing something, or maybe people are just exaggerating, extending the idea of Williams' spirit being here to it being Williams' original endo. I don't know, as I just said, I could be missing something. Maybe it's actually in the 4th epilogue that this is confirmed. I don't know. But as of now, I don't think it makes sense that the endoskeleton is Williams' original one. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to. But I want to know your thoughts. What did you think about this epilogue? I can't speak properly. What did you think about this epilogue? Did you like it? Did you not? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys!